بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على محمد عدد ما ذكره الذاكرون اللهم صل على محمد عدد ما غفل عن ذكره الغافلون اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين اللهم صل على محمد في الآخرين اللهم صل على محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله والحمد لله لا شريك له لا إله إلا هو إليه النشور. أمسينا على فطرة الإسلام وكلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. اللهم إنا أمسينا منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتم علينا نعمتك وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما أمسى بنا من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. أحبتي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. طبتم وطاب ممشاكم وتبوأتم من الجنة منزلا بإذن الله. This is the second time I'm visiting with this community. I'm really happy and glad to be with you tonight. Jazakallah khair Sheikh Mazhar for the nice introduction. Jazakallah khair for the leadership, the administration of the masjid for facilitating this event. Tonight inshallah we have nothing to do with finance. So let's put the Islamic finance aside, talk about completely different subjects. With the challenges that the American society is facing today, American society at large. And the Muslim community is a part of this society at large. There are a lot of challenges and new things that we are facing that we need to be aware of. Our topic for tonight will be like very, very technical, discussing some like fiqh issues related to certain circumstances, certain options in marriage and divorce and so on and so forth. But this subject should not be taken, independently from the whole situation. Keeping the family connection, the family ties. All the homosexuality issue that is discussed widely nowadays and transgender is actually a part of the package that we Muslims are facing in this society. We need to be extra careful. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our family members. We have to show our kids that love and that passion and that care and that guidance and continuous education to make sure that at least in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we are doing our best to keep our Muslim identity and to stay away from any kind of negative impact that the society is going through nowadays. Every single era and time new issues take place, and those new contemporary issues have to have a rule in our deen, because we all believe that Islam is a comprehensive way of life applicable anytime, anywhere, right? Although the evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah are very limited when it comes to fiqh, however, we do have some other resources, and every single time, every single era, we do have a certain number of people who are qualified enough to use certain tools to extract new rules for those contemporary issues that Muslims are facing. And this is what is commonly known as fiqh al-aqalliyat. Fiqh al-aqalliyat, the jurisprudential rules of the Muslim minority. When we say fiqh al-aqalliyat, we are not like coming up or innovating new rules for Muslims in the West, right? To keep them away from their Muslim identity. It's absolutely not the case. Fiqh al-aqalliyat, the rules of the Muslim minority, means that people of knowledge, the qualified people of knowledge, have to do their best to extract rules from the Quran and the Sunnah and the unanimity of the scholars and the qiyas, the analogy and different other sources of legislation to educate the community at large, making sure that every single issue that we face does have a rule That rule could be prohibition, could be permissibility, could be an obligation, whatever the rule might be, but it has to have a rule. We have a lot of things that we face here in this society. Some of those issues are like old and new. Old and new in a sense that they do have some basic rules in the Quran, but the surrounding circumstances are different. Surrounding circumstances are different. So we need to answer a question. Does the same rule that be mentioned in the Quran still apply nowadays, providing the change in the circumstances or not? Let's take the very first point here. Marrying from the people of the book. الزواج بالكتابيات. My apology for our youth, like this is a very technical presentation. It's not about tarbiyah, it's not about like, self-motivation and maw'idha. It's like very technical. We discuss like fiqh issues. However, it's good to learn more about your deen. Marrying from the people of the book. Why we are raising this issue here? Because basically in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who permitted for Muslim men to get married from the women of the people of the book. Is that correct? That's in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Okay. وطعام الذين أوتوا الكتاب حل لكم وطعامكم حل لهم والمحصنات من المؤمنات. Muslim men are permitted, are allowable to, are allowed to get married, with the women of the people of the book. Okay. والمحصنات من المؤمنات والمحصنات من الذين أوتوا الكتاب. You can get married from the muhsanat or the chaste women who do not have any haram relationship with others, whether those women are like Muslimat or otherwise from the people of the book. This is actually the default rule, that any kind of marriage between a Muslim man and a Christian or a Jewish woman is permissible as long as number one, that woman actually claims to be among the people of the book. She says that I am Christian, I am Jewish, for example. And regardless of the distortion that happened in the Torah and the Bible, and regardless of which denomination they belong to, okay? Some Christians, as you know, nowadays are Protestants, some of them are Catholic, some of them are so on and so forth. This actually does not make any difference. And it does not make any difference the distortion that they have created in their book. Distortion actually is the intentional change that they have made in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the same Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah Al-Ma'idah, is the one where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicated clearly that they disbelieved. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ. They disbelieve those who claim that Allah is Al-Masih or Jesus. The same surah is the one who permitted Muslim men to get married, from the people of the book. So no one can claim that this ayah is abrogated or mansukha, or a Muslim cannot get married with a non-Muslim woman. Well, there is a default rule, there's an exception. Default rule that any mushrikah, okay, any female that is not Muslimah in general, which is mushrikah, right, is prohibited for a Muslim man to get married with. Now, from that default rule, there is an exception, unless that woman is a Christian or a Jew, right? So that's the default rule. Well, believe it or not, even during the lifetime of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he did actually prohibit or prevented or stopped some of the companions from getting married with the people of the book. And actually he was looking for the maslahah, for the general benefit and interest of the Muslim community. He wanted at that time to make sure that Muslim men are getting married with the Muslim women to establish more and more righteous Muslim families. So he stopped them from getting married with the kitabiyat, with the people of the book, not because he was trying to prohibit whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted, but actually he was considering the consequences of allowing the Sahaba of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam getting married with the non-Muslim. قال فمن لنساء المؤمنين. who will be getting married with the Muslim woman. If I allow all Muslim, like young Muslims and youth, to get married with a Christian woman, who's going to get married with our daughters in the Muslim community? This is one thing. And the other thing, if you analyze the circumstances, surrounding circumstances, where getting married between a Muslim man and a Christian or a Jewish woman was permissible, it was a while ago in the Muslim society. Muslim society where the man or the husband was the person in charge, was the leader of the household. Is it the case nowadays for Muslims living in the United States in 2022? Of course, it's completely different situation. When it comes to considering the consequences of this marriage, what will happen if you get married, okay, as a practicing Muslim, practicing young man, Muslim, you got married with a Christian lady, religious or non-religious, doesn't make any difference. And then after a few years, Allahu Alam, you just get separated, you get divorced, right? And by the law of the land and by the Islamic law, she is entitled for the custody. She's the custodian unless the kids choose otherwise. So she took the kids. Do you expect your non-Muslim ex-wife to take care of your kids and to make sure that they are raised according to the Islamic principles? That's close to impossible, right? فاقد الشيء لا يعطي. The one who does not have something, does not give it to others. Because of all that, our official position as AMJA, as the Assembly of Muslim Jews of America, we said that we do not dare prohibiting something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made permissible, but we do actually take into consideration the reality of the situation of Muslims living in this society. And that's why our official position is that this kind of marriage is extremely disliked. يعني مباح مع الكراهة الشديدة. مباح مع الكراهة الشديدة. Number one, we have to make sure that our Muslim youth are getting married from within the same community. They take care of the Muslim women and girls getting married with them. Number two, there is no qawama, supported by the law of the land in the society here. There is no leadership, acknowledged for the man or for the husband over others in the household. That's unfortunately the law of the land and the American culture as well. Number three, considering the potential consequences, right? Whenever that marriage is not proceeding well and the spouses are getting separated, okay? The kids actually will never ever be in a good environment, in good hands, to be raised according to the Islamic principles. Well, we went even further by saying it's okay for the Islamic centers, to refrain from conducting those marriage contracts. Not because they are haram again. We do not dare saying that, we prohibit whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made permissible, but just to make it clear that we extremely discourage our kids, our youth to get married with non-Muslim girls. By the way, this presentation is not copyrighted, so Sheikh Mazhar can maybe forward it to the community or put it in the website, whatever you prefer. Moving on, embracing Islam by the wife while the husband remains non-Muslim. So the scenario goes that a couple, man and woman, got married when they were Christians or when they were non-Muslims. Maybe one of them is Christian and the other one is a Jew, right? Whatever the case might be. When they got married, they were non-Muslims. After a while, the wife accepted Islam. Now the question that we receive here, can I continue living with my husband as if nothing happened or not? It's a very tough question. And believe it or not, it might discourage some sisters from accepting Islam. And it did actually cause, unfortunately, some of those sisters to committed apostasy because of the fatwa that I will be mentioning now. Let me make a disclaimer here, that whatever I'm going to mention about this issue is the official position of AMJA, but it is not something that is agreed upon within the four different madhahib. It's not something that gained the unanimity of scholars. Well, we do have 9 different opinions believe it or not, 9 different opinions how to handle this situation. The couple were non-Muslims, and then the wife accepted Islam, right? And the husband remained non-Muslim. Right? Anyway, the strongest opinion that we adopt as a fiqh council is that because of the disqualification, because of the difference in religion, she cannot continue living with her husband as if nothing happened, because something actually happened. She became a Muslim, right? And we do have some resources in the Quran. ولا تنكحوا المشركات حتى يؤمنوا ولا تنكحوا المشركين حتى يؤمنوا ولا تمسكوا بعصم الكوافر, and so on and so forth. However, when we say that she cannot continue living with her husband as if nothing happened, we said that she has to establish her waiting period as if she has been divorced. As if she has been divorced. Waiting for 3 consecutive menses, right? ثلاثة قروء, as if she is divorced. And then toward the completion of the iddah period, she has 2 options. Either to annul or to terminate the marriage contract, or to continue waiting for her husband with the hope, with the prayers and the hope that he might accept Islam in the near future. This is our official position. The official position of our sister organization called the European Council of Research and Fatwa, headed by Sheikh Al-Qaradawi in the past, Hafidhahullah. They went actually to their fatwa is more lenient, I would say. They said it's up to the wife. If she wants to continue with her husband as if nothing happened, as long as she feels safe and she is welcomed by her husband to practice her deen, like with no harassment, with no no harm from her husband's side, she can continue living with her. Now, you don't want to be in my position when a sister, actually, a convert sister, asks me this question: what do you think? Can I continue living with my husband, or we have to get separated? It's really like a very tough question for me, because I know the potential consequences of saying no, you have to be separated. Okay? Because it means for her that Islam became like a burden on her. You cannot continue because of becoming a Muslim. And unfortunately, it did happen that some of those sisters actually they changed their mind and they apostatized because of this fatwa, and they went back to kufr wal billah. So our official position is that they have to be separated. They cannot continue having conjugal relation, physical relation because of the disqualification, and she has to stay away from him during fatratul iddah, تعتد منه, as if she is divorced. And then upon the completion of the iddah, she has 2 options: either to exit that marriage contract, okay, by just annulling or terminating the marriage contract, and she can get married with somebody else. Otherwise, she can just stay on hold, waiting and praying, for his guidance to accept Islam. If he did accept Islam, we do have 2 different approaches here: either to establish a new marriage contract, or just to continue or resume the original marriage contract that took place in the past. Nominal marriage for the purpose of getting permanent residency. That is nominal marriage for the purpose of getting permanent residency. Now, from the title itself, you can tell that we are not talking about real, actual, tangible marriage. It's just a nominal one, which means marriage on papers. Okay, it's not a joke. It is a reality that some women in this society, of course, non-Muslims, they do have several husbands in different states, getting married with them, applying for their permanent residence, and they make it as if it is like their source of income. They make their living out of doing this business. And she charges every single one maybe $200 or $300 a month, all the way until the permanent residence or the green card actually is granted for him. Whenever you hear nominal marriage, it shouldn't be something welcomed in Islam, because actually the marriage contract is a very sacred and a very respected and a very serious relationship between a man and a woman. Whenever they decide to live together, it means that they have to honor that decision, and they have to to stand in a very responsible way to establish a family. It's an actual, real, tangible, physical, spiritual, social, financial connection between a man and a woman. And of course, I mean, they have to follow certain procedure in order for this marriage contract to be a valid one. So our position is the following: if if someone actually is not intending to getting married, right? It's just like a paperwork. Then that person is آثم ديانة بينه وبين الله عز وجل. Inwardly, between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's absolutely committing a sin. Because actually he's just playing games with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. This is a very sacred covenant, an agreement, and a contract between a man and a woman, right? So if you just play around and try to manipulate and change the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are committing a sin. When you say that I will be getting married with so and so, it means that you have to honor your word as a man. So nominal marriage is absolutely prohibited. Some of our youth actually are raising question. I'm living here in this society illegally. I came to the United States back before like whatever years, and I just overstayed my visa, or I just entered in an illegal way. I want to stay here. So isn't it an excuse for me? Isn't it a necessity for me to violate, the rule, or to be exempted, and being allowed to get married in a nominal, going through a nominal marriage? And the answer actually is no. You do not have to stay in the society here to start with. And if you are serious and you want to stay, why do not you catch two birds in one stone, as they say? Look for a practicing Muslim, American citizen practicing Muslim, and get married. على سنة الله ورسوله. Actual, real, tangible, physical, social, emotional marriage, like any other couple living together. And meanwhile, maybe you can, ask your wife to apply for your green card. Now, there is a difference between حكم الشيء ديانة وحكمه قضاء. Inwardly and outwardly. Inwardly, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are absolutely committing a sin. Make no mistake about it. Now, outwardly, حكم العقد قضاء. Okay, just imagine that I'm the judge, or I'm the imam, or the ma'dhoon, and a man and a woman came to me, okay, with the wali, guardian, and two witnesses, and they exchanged like the offer and the acceptance. زوجتكم وليتي على مهر قدره $1,000. I have married my ward to you for $1,000 على سنة الله ورسوله. And he said, I have accepted marrying your ward. Okay. If I do not know what do they have in mind, how can I tell that this is a nominal marriage? I do not know. I do not have an access to their heart and their mind, to discover whether they are liars or they are serious. So apparently, outwardly, that's called al-hukmu qada'an, that this marriage contract actually is a valid, as long as all the criteria and the requirements are matched in that marriage contract. We cannot say that this is an invalid one. Well, it is a valid one. However, diyanatan, inwardly, religiously, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are definitely committing a sin by going through this marriage. Something that is similar, which is nominal divorce for the purpose of acquiring some official benefits. A couple came from overseas, married already, and they run out of their immigration status, right? And the only way for the husband to stay here is to get married with an American citizen, right? And he cannot get married with an American citizen because polygamy is a federal offense in this society. So he has no choice but to divorce his wife, right? Divorce his wife in a very nominal nature. He loves her, he wants her, he does not want to divorce her. However, this is the only legal solution. He has to terminate that marriage contract, and I think wait for 6 months before start approaching another woman for marriage purposes. And the question here, can I, in a very nominal nature, divorce my wife without meaning to divorce her? And the answer is no. وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا آيَاتِ اللَّهِ هُزُوًا. Prophet ﷺ said, ثلاث جدهن جد وهزلهن جد. ثلاث جدهن جد وهزلهن جد. Three different words and decisions. If you make them jokingly or seriously, they are counted. النكاح والطلاق والرجعة. Getting married, establishing a marriage contract, okay, divorce, and taking one's wife back. Okay, marriage means that an old man is joking with a young man. Ha ha, زوجتك ابنتي. I have married my daughter to you, as a joke. And that guy said, okay, I have accepted marrying your daughter, right? And there were two witnesses, okay, who understand the language of the two contracting parties. Believe it or not, up to this point, the marriage contract actually is valid and sound. Of course, it is like, suspended, okay, stipulated by the approval of the girl herself, because her dad cannot enforce her to get married with someone that she does not want to get married to. But up to this point, this is an actual real marriage contract. To that extent, to that extreme, that the Prophet ﷺ is warning us. Okay, put the jokes aside when it comes to marriage, when it comes to divorce, when it comes to returning your wife. Divorce actually is the same. Someone was just joking with his wife and he said, you are divorced. Joking, right? Well, believe it or not, she is divorced. If he mentioned, like, verbalize the statement, you are divorced, anti talib, that's it. Taking his wife back is also the same, right? أرجعتك أنت حليلتي أنت زوجتي أرجعتك إلى عصمتي. That's returning his wife back, even if he did not mean it. As long as he verbalized and says something, then that's it. It will be counted as a valid one. So back to the point, nominal divorce for the purpose of acquiring some official benefits. Nominal divorce means that divorcing his wife on papers only, just to terminate that marriage contract and to be able to get married with another woman, is absolutely haram. Absolutely haram. And it is counted. Okay? Haram in a sense that you divorce without meaning divorce. Right? And if you go for it, if you apply for a divorce, then whether you verbalize it or not, it is counted, because you, the husband, was the one who applied for it. Right? Although this is like a debatable issue, if someone did not verbalize it and just wrote down in the application that I want to divorce, like asking the judge, because here the law in this society, you cannot initiate a divorce, right? You have to apply for divorce, and the judge or the court system has to approve that application. This is the law of the land. So some scholars believe that if you write it down without verbalizing it, it might not be counted. But our official position, no, is that whenever you apply, it means that you mean it. Unless, like, you applied against your will, that's completely different discussion. Civil marriage in an American court. I don't wanna say that this is a common mistake, but actually it did happen with several brothers, especially in the past, like back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s of the last century, before establishing Islam very well in this society and having ulama and mashayikh and scholars and activists and masajid and Islamic schools. It did happen with several people actually, that they went to the court and they did their marriage in a very civil way. Okay, by the authority of Judge XYZ, I'm marrying John Smith with Jennifer whatever, right? Or Fatima and Muhammad. And they used to think that the authority of the non-Muslim judge is more than enough to establish a religious marriage contract, an Islamic marriage contract, which is absolutely wrong. In order for any marriage contract to be counted as a valid one, we have to have a wali. Wali means a guardian, a representative, like someone from the bride, okay, has to represent her. A male from the bride party has to represent her. If her dad is still alive and available and accessible, then he has to be the wali. Whether she is never married before, or even divorced, or even widow, believe it or not, the marriage contract cannot be a valid one, with some exception. Maybe you have one established madhab, which is madhab Abu Hanifa and Umar radiallahu anh, who believes otherwise. But the majority or the jumhur are with the opinion that marriage contract is invalid without having wali. And then we have to have two witnesses. like two sane adult males who are sitting and hearing and listening and seeing those two contracting parties executing the marriage contract. And we have to have a صيغة or a statement, like an offer and an acceptance. زوجتك موليتي. I have married my daughter to you. I have accepted marrying your daughter. Without having those pillars, those arkan of the marriage contract, it is not valid. It is not. Now, do you think that all these different pillars and requirements of the marriage contract are like honored in the court system? Absolutely no, they are not. Okay, if the girl is adult, like 18 or more, she does not have to have anyone representing her from her family members. Sometimes she is requested to bring her mom. Well, her mom cannot be her wali in the Islamic in the Muslim family law. We do not have two witnesses. We do not have wali. We do not have ijab and qabul, offer and acceptance, right? So I would say more than 95, maybe 99% of the civil marriages that take place in the court system are invalid from an Islamic perspective. We did actually come up with with a few exceptions. We said that if one of those pillars was omitted or was not honored, then we can overlook it and just pass a fatwa that this particular marriage is fine, because actually we do have some slight differences between the four different madhab that we follow, the Hanafi, the Maliki, the Shafi'i, and the Hanbali one, regarding the requirements or the basic requirements for the marriage contract. For example, al-wali is not a must according to the Hanafi school of thought, right? Like a girl can get married by herself without the permission, without the presentation or the representation of her wali, although she is recommended even according to the Ahnaf. Ash-shuhud, for example, having witnesses, is not a must according to the Maliki school of thought, right? Al-mahr, according to our madhab, the Shafi'iyya, Shafi'i in general, that the marriage contract actually is valid without mentioning or specifying the mahr in the contract. So based on that, Amjad said that, well, if one of the pillars was dropped or was not, met or considered, and that marriage contract, has been widely accepted, and the whole community know that XYZ and ABC are a couple, then that will be taken, the same rule of a valid marriage. However, we do ask those couple to stay away from one another until they re-establish the marriage contract one more time. Just to be in the safe side. If more than one pillar have been dropped or not met, then this is absolutely an invalid one. They have to stay away, and they have to re-establish the marriage contract. So that is the civil marriage. Validity of divorce decreed by American court. In this society, we have two different steps to establish a marriage contract. We have a marriage license, right? Which is the approval of the court system for a man and a woman to get married. This is not a marriage contract. This is just a marriage license, right? And upon the approval, those couple can go to the masjid if they are Muslims to get married, or to the church to get married, or to the synagogue to get married. It depends on which religion they follow. Now, Muslims usually go to the masjid, to the imam, to do the Islamic marriage contract, right? And then that Islamic marriage contract is re-registered again and approved by the court system, which is the civil marriage. Civil marriage actually is based on the religious one, or based on the Islamic one. Now, when it comes to divorce, we have a civil marriage, we have an Islamic marriage. Okay, the civil marriage can be terminated by the authority of the judge, the judge. The Islamic marriage, believe it or not, cannot be approved or cannot be valid. The Islamic marriage, Islamic divorce, cannot be executed or valid by the authority of the judge himself. It has to be initiated by whom? By the husband, right? So let's say, for example, that the wife was not happy with her husband, and she filed for divorce against his will. It was not like a joint application. It was an individual application by whom? By the wife, right? And she went through the process. After 6 months, after the judge issued a divorce decree. Divorce decree. That divorce decree is valid from a legal perspective, but according to the Islamic or the Muslim family law, that lady is still the wife of that husband. This actually does not mean, by any chance, that the husband has an ultimate, unlimited authority, and he can, keep abusing his wife by refraining from divorcing her. No, I mean, he has to divorce her either by choice or by force, right? But up to this point, I mean, my point here is that up to the point of issuing the the civil the civil divorce or the civil divorce decree, right? She is not divorced from an Islamic perspective. There is another scenario. What if the couple, both of them, the husband and the wife, agreed jointly upon their mutual consent to apply for divorce? So the husband actually was involved from day one. You see the difference between this scenario and the previous one? Okay. They both applied. And after 6 months, the judge, the non-Muslim judge, male or female, issued a divorce decree. Would that be counted as an Islamic divorce or not? Our answer in Amja is yes. What's the difference here? Difference here is that the husband actually was involved, and he was the one who asked the judge to divorce his wife. Right? Now, the fiqh interpretation of what happened is what is called al-tawkilu fi al-talaq, like giving a power of attorney to somebody else, okay? Giving the authorization to somebody else to divorce the wife on behalf of the husband. And that's actually agreed upon, to my knowledge, that it is valid. Someone actually can tell somebody else, go talk to my wife and tell her that she is divorced. Or you go ahead and divorce my wife on my behalf, whatever the reason behind it might be. التوكيل في الطلاق مباح. So when the husband himself is the one either exclusively applied for divorce against the will of his wife, or otherwise they applied jointly for divorce, and the divorce decree is initiated by the court system, then she is divorced, right? The civil marriage, and she is divorced the Islamic marriage as well. Because again, the husband actually was involved from day one, and this has been done upon his request. Reason behind that is the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, إنما الطلاق لمن أخذ بالساق. إنما الطلاق لمن أخذ بالساق, which means that the one who has the right of divorce is the one who initiated the marriage contract, which is, usually the husband. He is the one who proposes, he is the one who establishes the marriage contract, and he is the one who has the right to terminate it. Adopting Muslim children, refugees in the West. Whenever there is like a civil war or natural disaster overseas, a lot of private, non-profit, governmental, semi-governmental organizations, churches, sometimes Department of State, they get involved in bringing those refugees from overseas to the United States. And subhanAllah, it does happen every now and then that we have a good number of Muslim kids, okay, coming or brought from Afghanistan, from Somalia, from whatever Muslim country might be. And they are orphans. And they are ready to be adopted. And a lot of non-Muslim families are looking forward for any child to adopt him or her, right? And we know almost for a fact, if a young boy or girl, Muslim, is adopted by a non-Muslim family, what kind of religion he or she will be embracing in the near future? Of course, anything else other than Islam. So there is an ethical and a moral responsibility on the shoulders of the Muslim community to take care of those kids. However, the obstacle that we have here is the legal adoption issue. And by adoption actually means that a certain child is attributed to somebody else other than his biological father, right? My name is Man, okay? And my son's name is Noor, right? Now this is in the Islamic tradition. If I'm to adopt somebody else with the name of Abdullah, right? The adopted child will be calling himself Abdullah Ma'an Alqudhah, right? Whosoever, well, the middle name, by default is the name of the biological father, unless otherwise proven. Like in the Indo-Pak, in the subcontinent culture, you have completely different tradition there, right? Your middle name does not reflect your biological father. Am I correct? What's that? It does
Not
not.
all the time. Not all the time.
Not all the time?
Sometimes they do choose the middle name as the father's name.
Okay. So adoption actually means that a child is attributed to someone other than his biological father, legitimate biological father. And that is the problem. Adoption was permissible for a certain period of time, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogated that law, as you know, ادعوهم لآبائهم وأقسط عند الله. The good news here is that it's not like a white or black. There is, a gray area in between, right? You can file or apply to be a foster parent. You can be the legal guardian of that child, right? So you can sponsor him or her. You can adopt him in a way other than the way that he has to be attributed to you as if he or she is your biological son, because actually he is not. However, we said in our official declaration here, if the legal adoption, in a sense that child will be attributed to that individual as if he is his own biological, father, if this is the only way that we can save those kids from being Christianized in the future, then let's go for it. But that actually foster parent has to make a declaration or announcement in front of the community that this child is not my biological one. He is my adopted son, and this was the only way for me actually to take care of him in a legal way. Alhamdulillah, as I said, we do have some flexibility here. You can be a foster parent, you can be a legal guardian, you can be a sponsor. It depends on which state you live in and what are the rules of that state. But alhamdulillah, when there is a will, there is a way, as they say. Let me just skip this one because of the sisters. The contribution of the wife who participates by her skills and labor in building the wealth of her husband. This is actually a very, very common issue here. Couple gets married, okay? Both of them were physicians, for example. And she quit her career just to stay home and to take care of her husband and her kids, right? And after a few years, maybe 5, 10, 15 years, Allah, more or less, they get divorced, right? It might happen that during their marital life, she was participating in building the business or the career of her husband in a way or another, right? By either quitting her job and just staying home to take care of the household issue, or otherwise by going and just working, having hands on with her husband, building his wealth and his business. And then after a while they just get separated. Question here, does she deserve anything other than the delayed dowry, other than the housing and the alimony, right? Which are the basic financial and social rights of the wife upon divorce? And our answer actually is yes. If it is proven that she participated in a way or another in building the wealth or the career of her husband, then she will be counted or considered as an employee or as a partner. And we need to bring some experts in this field, in this particular business, particular industry, to determine how much she deserves, to be compensated. And whatever they decide is binding. He has to pay her whatever they decide, on top of the initial financial rights. Again, the delayed dowry and the housing and the alimony or nafaqa wal sukna. Moving on with الزواج العرفي. الزواج العرفي is the non-registered marriage. Okay, in some cultures actually it's very unacceptable, even in the Muslim society. although like polygamy is permissible, but socially speaking, like it's not that acceptable. So some people who are looking for halal, like relationship with the woman, they can register that marriage. It is 100% legal, but they try to stay away from it to keep it, as we say, low profile, unregistered. Okay. The question here is about the status of this as zawaj al-urfi, or the non-registered one. By non-registered marriage, we mean an Islamic marriage contract that matched all the requirements. Again, there was an ijab, and a qabool, and a wali, and two witnesses, and a mutual offer and acceptance. Everything actually sounds good, right? Our position here as the Fiqh Council, we said that if that zawaj urfi, non-registered marriage, matched all the basic requirements of the marriage contract, it is valid. Because basically, believe it or not, registering the marriage contract is not a requirement, right? It's just like a siyasa shar'iyya. By the development of the society, it became necessary to make sure that marriage is officially acknowledged by the Muslim state. If there is a pregnancy, or there is a death, or there is a divorce, or whatever, okay, the financial and the social rights of the wife, right, will never be compromised or just ignored, because that marriage actually is registered. But that registration is not one of the pillars, okay, required for the validity of the marriage contract. And that's why we said that the zawaj al-urfi, non-registered marriage, actually is a valid one. However, it is a disliked one. So mubahun ma'a al-karaha. Why? In case of dispute, how can that wife go after him and ask for her financial right? What if she gets pregnant, for example, and then before delivery or even after delivery, they just got divorced? How can she prove the legitimacy of that child if there's nothing actually put together in writing? How much time we have?
Maybe 5 minutes, then we'll
طيب.
open up for questions.
Zawaj al-mut'a is a temporal marriage. They call it mut'a. Mut'a means pleasure. But I would say the accurate translation of zawaj al-mut'a is not like a pleasure marriage. No, it is a temporal, a timed one, in a sense that the couple, the husband and the wife, well, the two parties actually, they are not husband and wife. Two parties actually agree in advance for the duration of that relationship, right? It could be, one night. It could be 1 week. It could be 1 month. Allahu Alam. And in this case, he does not have to divorce his wife. Okay, we are now, today is the 30th of July, 2022. How many days we have in July? One more day.
Yeah.
One more day. So what was that? Yeah, one more day. So he said, تزوجتك حتى بداية شهر أغسطس. I'm getting married with you until the beginning of August, which means that they have only 1 day. By the end of that period, the marriage contract actually is terminated automatically. He does not have to divorce her, because it is a timed one. It is a temporal one, right? You know that for a certain period of time, zawaj al-mut'ah was permissible, even according to Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, right? And then the Prophet ﷺ permanently prohibited zawaj al-mut'ah, permanently. So from that point on, from Ghazwat Khaybar on, zawaj al-mut'ah actually became equivalent to zina, wal-'iyadhu billah. What is interesting here is that another Muslim sect, which is the Shia sect, still believe that zawaj al-mut'ah is still permissible, and they practice it, right? I found this text in one of their resources one of the authentic resources of the Shia sect. اوكي. انظر من كتب الشيعة مثلا تهذيب الأحكام للشيخ الطوسي جزء صفحة عن محمد بن يحيى. Here is the chain of narrators, okay, of that source. محمد بن يحيى reported from Abu Ja'far, reported from أبي الجوزة عن الحسين بن علوان عن عمرو بن خالد الواسطي عن زيد عن علي عن آبائه, okay, عن علي عليه السلام. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, according to that Shi'i source, that Ali radiallahu anhu, himself, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, is the one who said, حرم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يوم خيبر, in the day of Khaybar, غزوة خيبر, لحوم الحمر الأهلية, consuming the meat of the domestic donkeys, ونكاح المتعة, and the temporal marriage. How come that they still believe it is permissible? Honestly, I have no idea. Of course, I mean, زواج المتعة for us, أهل السنة والجماعة, is permanently prohibited. It is equivalent to zina. الزواج, طيب, let me skip all that. Can you, Sheikh, open the وصية for me? Maybe I can talk to the committee after Isha, right? We have like the peak. This is the Islamic bequest, or al-wasiyyah al-shar'iyyah. Okay, it has been drafted by a group of attorneys in the state of Minnesota under the supervision of my colleague Sheikh Walid al-Minaisi, a member in the resident fatwa committee of AMJA, and I took his permission actually to edit and to review it, and I did. I made like a lot of editing on it. This is actually a legally binding document. It depends on which state you live in. I'm not sure here in the state of Illinois what is required, but in the state of Texas, for example, if you notarize it without having witnesses, it is binding. I sent it to Sheikh Mazhar in a Word format, so you can modify it, you can print, you can remove whatever you want. It's a very detailed one, and we spend hours and hours, either myself or Sheikh Walid, Rizallah Khair, or his group of attorneys. Just make sure that you get a copy. Well, two different copies. One copy under your name, and you need to assign your wife as the executor of the wasiyyah, okay, upon your death, la samahallah, and vice versa. The second one under her name, okay, and she assigns you as the executor of the wasiyyah. It has a lot of details to go through. For example, the funeral itself, to make sure that you match, the Islamic code of a funeral. It has another section about funeral, fiduciary assignment, whom you want to be in charge, okay, of your business. You want to close the business, you want to keep it as is. Who's the person to run it, and so forth, and so on and so forth. Fiduciary selection and fiduciary, I think, authority. What exactly provisions? What exactly you want those representatives and those executors to do? You need to be very specific. And as I said, this is a Word format, so you can just type and change whatever you want. And there's another section about the diyun and the financial responsibilities. La samahallah, you passed away before paying zakatul mal, right? You passed while owing others, some money. You need to document everything, right? You did not perform Hajj while being able to perform Hajj. You did not pay zakatul mal in full, okay? Whatever you owe others, it has to be captured and documented. And there's another section about mawarith, okay? Do not get involved in dividing your estate or your wealth during your lifetime. Do not specify the legal heirs from now. Do not write in your wasiyyah that I want my wife to take 1/8 because I have kids, and I want my dad to take 1/6 and my mom to take 1/6, and the rest for my kids, 2 shares for male versus 1 share per female, because you do not know who's gonna stay and who's gonna pass, right? So do not ask for 1/6 for your dad, because you do not know. You might pass before your dad, right? So just keep it simple, that I direct or I mandate my estate to be distributed according to the Islamic inheritance law, period. And I actually added here AMJA as a reference in case of like having dispute or misunderstanding by the non-Muslim judge. If he or she is asking for a kind of religious authority, if you trust AMJA as an organization, keep the name of AMJA. If you trust somebody else, or you want somebody else to be the reference, okay, or the expert called by the judge to explain or to elaborate on something, You just remove amja and put, whatever you want. And there is a very detailed schedule that breaks down the Islamic inheritance law with all the scenarios possible. Okay, you left behind without having parents, while having kids without having parents, have a wife, and so on and so forth. Having brothers like direct or half brothers, half sisters. All these different details actually are like outlined here. Just keep it as is, right? As simple as that, and make sure that you notarize it. If you have like two witnesses or one witness, two witnesses, run it by your attorney to make sure that it is legally binding. I have heard, by the way, one of our community members in Houston actually took this wasiyah, filled it out, and after a while he passed away. And I have heard from the attorney of Guidance College. He told me that this wasiyah was approved 100% by the non-Muslim judge in Houston, right? So it is actually binding, it is 100% legal. But again, you need to run it in full by your attorney because some minor issues differ from one state to another. Okay, assignment of like fiduciary requirements for the fiduciary, how to what do you call it? Are you required to notarize it? Having two witnesses. Again, run it by your attorney. It's not copyrighted. It's for everybody. Please make sure that you take copy from Sheikh Mazhar. Fill it out. Two different copies. One under your name, and the other one under your wife's name. I have heard from some attorneys that you need to do something else called the revocable family trust. Revocable family trust actually is a more complicated process. You have to pay for it, while this one actually is for free. And you need to capture all the properties and the assets and the wealth that you have. And in case of having any change, you have a building like a complex or apartment or whatever, and then you sold it, you need to go back to that trust and just remove and adjust, right? To my understanding, the revocable family trust is more binding and authoritative than this one. This one actually is good enough as long as the waratha, the legal heirs, are not disputing. If they admit and adhere to it, then actually the judge cannot enforce the wife or the kids or the parents to take more than what they deserve. Unless like someone complain, that's completely different issue. So this is actually very, very briefly what I have. I still have like a lot of issues to discuss, but I think we are running out of time. So I think maybe it's time to open the floor for question and answer, providing that we have 15 minutes for Salat al-Isha. Jazakumullah khairan. So I'm done, and the floor is yours. You wanna turn the recording off or keep it? It's up to you. Totally.
Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykhana al-Ghali. May Allah let us continue to benefit from you as the days and the months and the years pass. May Allah prolong your life and grant you and your family Jannatul Firdaus with the reckoning. May Allah facilitate eternal success for Guidance College. Once again, please try to contribute. The Shaykh will have a detailed information regarding the college after Isha. So please, once again, out of respect, he came a very long way. Please stay and benefit from his words after Isha. Inshallah, we'll open the floor for Q&A. There's a question here. The LGBTQ plus lobby is very strong. Our young Muslims are being confused in school, sports activities, etc., movies for young children, etc. Can you please advise in the best way possible how to talk to them in this regard?
Well, this is one of the biggest, as I said in the beginning, biggest challenges actually we are facing here, the LGBT issue and the ultimate support by the legal system here for this kind of practice. Let me say the following. From a very, very pure Islamic perspective, having a legitimate relationship between a man and woman, which is zina, right? Zina, or like adultery if they or one of them is married, is called in the Quran as fahisha, right? Fahisha. ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا. So zina between a man and a woman is an immoral act, fahisha, according to the Quran, right? Now, having a physical sexual relationship between two partners of the same gender, like a man with a man or a male with a male, female with a female, is called fahisha in the Quran as well, right? إنكم لتأتون الفاحشة. Lut عليه الصلاة والسلام was addressing his community. إنكم لتأتون الفاحشة ما سبقكم بها من أحد من العالمين. You initiated the sin, without being like preceded by any other community in the past. So my point here is that, technically speaking, both sins are called fahisha. But the only difference between them is that the first one complies with the human nature, the human instinct, right? Because there is like a mutual attractiveness between males and females in general, right? So having illegitimate relationship between a man and a woman is not something acceptable, but it is expected because it is a response of the human. In the same way that you eat, the same way that you drink, you do have some physical sexual needs. This is not to justify the LGBT. No, it is just to explain to us and to give us some background in order for us to be as balanced as possible. Because unfortunately nowadays we harshly tackle homosexuality, and we forget about the other fact that the majority of those people who are not homosexual, the majority of them are having illegitimate relation. So we tackle homosexuality and we overlook or we ignore zina. Although this one actually is fahisha, and this one is fahisha بنص القرآن الكريم. This is number one. Number two, yes, I know it is like a very confusing issue, because actually the liberty that we enjoy in this society here and the freedom of speech, being in the masjid, talking against homosexuality, speaking against President Joe Biden, saying whatever you want, that liberty actually and freedom of speech and freedom of practice is the same one that has been granted to the LGBT community. So we are putting ourselves in a very confusing position. Are we okay with liberty, okay, and freedom for all, or we are against liberty and freedom? If you say yes, then by default you are supporting LGBT. And if you say no, then you are contradicting yourself. You do not want to have that freedom of speech in your masjid. Where to go from here? That's the question. I would suggest the following, that we explain for our kids that there is a religious position and there is a civil position. From a pure religious perspective, if someone asks me a question, are you with or against LGBT? My answer as a Muslim, I'm against any practice, any physical relationship between anyone outside marriage. And the definition of marriage is that legitimate relationship, legitimate halal relationship between a man and a woman. So I am against zina, I'm against fornication, I'm against adultery, I'm against homosexuality. This is from a pure religious perspective. And this is something actually unnegotiable. If you pass a survey within the Muslim community, you are just wasting your time, because the answer will be, we are against homosexuality, we are against zina from a pure religious perspective, right? Now, from a civil perspective, and this is not a hypocrisy, right? This is actually what we believe in, that this is actually the land of freedom, land of liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of practice, you do whatever you want. So based on the liberty that I enjoy in this society, I cannot stand against those people, okay, from a civil perspective, but I do actually stand against their practice, as well as those who have zina relationship. I'm standing against all of them, because that's against the principles that I believe in. So I believe in the prohibition of homosexuality, I believe in the prohibition of zina, I believe in the prohibition of any illegitimate relationship, physical relationship between any gender outside marriage. But meanwhile, I cannot stop those people, because the liberty that has been granted to them is the same liberty that allows me, to speak against them and to practice my deen. I'm not sure if this is like a persuasive or convincing approach to talk to our kids. I would love actually to hear from you. I mean, this is not like a pure fiqh issue, so maybe you have your own experience on how to handle this issue. What kind of approach you have when it comes to like talking to your teenager kids. تفضل أخي الكريم.
The problem I'm talking from a medical perspective. Like when I went to medical school, we were taught in medicine, in science, that homosexuality is a disease. It's an illness. It's psychological. It's a behavioral disease, and it should be treated. And there was treatment. And sometime during the mid-80s, due to political pressure, the science has been changed. So they actually took all the science about this kind of human behavior and practice as a disease to become something genetic. But those people are genetically born like that. This is a normal human behavior. It's a normal variant. Like you have A, B, and now C. And now you have D. And there's like E. So, and they teach the kids that in school, in biology, that these people are born like that. I mean, it's not their fault. So how can, even from a religious perspective, saying that it's their fault to be born like that? So this is the roots of the problem. The roots of the problem is that the science has been manipulated. And when the science is being manipulated in a society that worships science, it's a very difficult problem. But the issue I have personally is that a lot of leadership in religious leadership, either Muslims or even Christians and Jews, they know that there are a lot of the problems that the society have, either economic or environmental or disasters. Not all of them are explained by science, and they know for a fact this. Part of it is punishment from God. Is it punishment because of what the society is doing, sins? Maybe. But what bothers me is that none of those three leaderships are moving any finger or talking into that perspective. But as far as changing the science and changing politics, that's a different perspective. My issue is why none of the Muslim or any religious leadership are not tackling this issue from trying to advise the society that committing these sins or keep going where the society is going could put us in a position where disasters is not going to be there's going to be something inevitable.
Let's hear from you. I mean, how did you tackle this issue with your own kids when they ask you this question as a medical doctor, Baba?
This is what I tell them. I actually still have my textbooks that say that this was a disease. And I took exams, I answered questions. And if you answer it in a different way, you would fail that exam. And I went through the same exams because we have to take these exams every 10 years. That these questions, they have to be answered in a different way. So this is something proven. The science has been manipulated. So we turned our back from treating a disease. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but if you talk to a psychiatrist, they will tell you in the 70s and 80s and 60s, this was a disease and there was a treatment for it. Now it's not a disease. It's a normal variant. These people are genetic. Of course, when they tell you genetically, nobody can prove what genetics, what are the genes and how they are born like that. It's all ambiguous. But of course, we know in fact that this is all political pressure.
So using the same logic, like if someone said, okay, by genes actually I do have like a tendency of violence. I love killing and shitting the blood of others. Would that be taken as an excuse because of your genes you will not be held accountable because of the murder that you have done?
We brought the same argument because there are actually genes.
Some brothers are very picky.
There are scientifically actually genes that makes certain humans more aggressive in behavior. There are certain illnesses that have genetic propensities that makes people behave in a different way. But there is a treatment for that.
No.
But as I said, this homosexuality and LGBTQ plus, by the way, it's not LGBTQ, it's
Yeah.
LGBTQ
And so
plus.
forth.
I don't know. Maybe there is a plus and minus when you have to work it.
No.
It's a never-ending process. But from my perspective, and I look at what's happening right now is the same way what happened to Ad. You remember when Ad they said, "Hada عارض ممطرنا"? What does عارض ممطرنا mean? This is a science. These people, they have science saying that, they probably have some kind of science that they can predict when the storm can happen. We don't know what civilization they have over there. But in the Quran says, بل هو ما استعجلتم به. ريح فيها عذاب. This is what I'm actually waiting for. I'm waiting for somebody to say, what's happening here is not only science, it's not only global warming. This could be punishment from God. And when God punishment comes, it doesn't come only to the sinners, it involves everybody.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect akhi Aswal. I think we are running out of time, so we need to, to move on with the program.
Inshallah, we'll conclude with the program. Sorry if we didn't have time to answer any more questions. The sheikh's always readily available, through me to answer any questions for you. If you have any questions, pass on your questions to me, inshallah. After the salah, he'll give a brief reminder, bi'idhnillah. And once again, I ask you and I sincerely appeal to you to contribute to Guidance College. It's for Tullabul Ilm, people who are studying knowledge. It's for, Dr. Rashdan, mashallah, tabarakallah, he's bringing about a lot of these in-depth aspects that we need to understand. If we don't facilitate for Islamic scholars to entertain these because they have lack of funds, then how will they sort of how will they cater to our needs as the Muslim Ummah? So inshallah, Dr. Ma'an will give you a highlight of some of the projects that Guidance College is executing nowadays, and please try your best to contribute to this in every regard. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.